Welcome, everyone. I'm very excited to have here Scot Paton in the lab. I'm really pleased. I know you asked from an instructor on Udemy, but above all, you are a power podcaster. And well, frankly, it's really for me the first time that I meet someone who is very successful in podcasting. And perhaps you could tell a little bit about yourself. I know that you live in Vancouver, and
you can see the green.
Well, it's a very beautiful place, I guess, but also the fact that perhaps you can tell us how you rolled into podcasting very shortly.
Sure. I think having watched people get into podcasting for the last 10 years, we all got in the same way, which was kicking and screaming and not wanting to be at all in podcasting. And so in 2003, I spent 3 months, trying to figure out how to do this thing called blogging. And it just, every article I read, everything said, blogging is really easy. And then right after that, I didn't understand a word that they said as they tried to explain to me how to do it. So after 3 months, I actually made a blog. I put a couple pages up on my site, and I put the right keywords in the right place. I went away on a 10-day cruise. When I came back, I was number one for my keywords on my site. And this was like, wow, because at that time, the Internet Marketing Center where I worked, we were teaching people it takes 3 to 6 months, and I'd done it in 10 days. So I was really excited about that. And they asked me to go around the world and teach people about blogging. They were so excited about the whole thing. And I thought, great. And they said, yeah, it's going to be Saturday night, 8 till 10. And I went, really? Yeah. Like, the boss, he's going to start at 7 in the morning. He's going to go till 6. We're going to have a 2-hour break. They're going to have a feast. They're going to be full. They're going to come back, and then they're going to have you. And I thought, that is a recipe for disaster, because I can see that after 8 hours of listening or 9 hours listening to my boss at that time, and then having a nice big meal and then coming back, I'm going to put them to sleep really fast, right? Particularly if I talk about blogging for 2 hours. I just could not imagine how I could talk about it for 2 hours and keep them entertained. So I decided I would talk for an hour on blogging and an hour on something else. And I'd heard about this thing called podcasting, and I had avoided it because, as you can imagine, if it had took me 3 months to figure out blogging, I thought it's going to take me 6 months to figure out podcasting. So I was just not going to go there. But then I thought, well, if I'm going to teach it for an hour, I guess I better learn it. And to my shock and amazement, it took me 20 minutes. I had my podcast set up. I had made an MP3. I had uploaded it. Then I downloaded it and I listened to it. I could not believe how easy it was and how fast it was. And for 10 years, people have told me, don't tell anybody it's easy, Scott. They're not going to buy your course or talk to you again. It's easy. We talk all the time on the phone. You can do a podcast. So I went around the world and I taught people about blogging, and then I talked to them about podcasting. And then when I left the company, I just continued to talk about podcasting predominantly. There's all sorts of other things you can talk about, but that's basically how I got into it. So I've been doing it for 10 years, and it's just been a wonderful ride.
Well, that's with the start of the iPod from Apple. You joined immediately the podcasting community, in fact, on the iTunes store.
Yeah.
But that was then. We're now 10 years further, and the technology exists now for 10 years. But what is now all about the fuss? Because it's really predominantly that people are talking now about podcasting. You have to do it, but it exists already 10 years. Why now? What's the reason about the fuss?
Well, in the beginning, the beauty of podcasting was it was the first time that you could actually communicate with somebody who wasn't on their computer. So at that point in time, just to give you sort of the historical background, you could You could put it on an iPod. So all of a sudden that was really amazing, right? Because when you go to the beach, there are all these people with these devices with buds coming out of their ear, right? And we assume they're listening to music, but they could just as easily be listening to your content. And that was what was really exciting about it. Or you could burn it on a CD and put it in the CD player in your car. So now there's two things that happened. One was one of the entertainers started something called Serial, and it became just this massive thing, and everyone woke up to the potential of podcasting, which has always been there, which is if you have really good content and people want to listen to you, and you can have video podcasts too, but the main advantage of podcasting over YouTube is the fact that you can multitask. So now what's happening is there was first of all, there was this one show that just blew up and everyone went, wow, like this must be big. It is big. Looked at all the downloads, blah, 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 all that stuff. And the other thing is the car manufacturers are always looking for some way to, up themselves or have something cool or different because, who cares? It's four wheels, an engine and a steering wheel and a brake. And, what's the difference? And that what's happened with the technology is podcasts are now going to be part of the car radio system, which means that if I have a podcast and you want to listen to me, all you have to do is get into your car, push the start button, push a little icon on your radio screen, brings up podcast, brings up the ones you've subscribed, and then click on it, and you'll be able to listen to me for as long as you want, or anybody else. So now what's happening is you've got a 20-minute on average commute to and from work in all the major cities. People are saying, you know what? You need to turn your car into an online university. I've heard that for 10 years, but now you can actually do that because the podcasts are right there available to you. So here's the big picture of why this is huge. I drive. Most of the people that drive, they'll either listen to first of all, they'll listen to their iPod, they'll phone. Okay, those are kind of two new things, but normally they listen to the radio, and that's still the habit. But when you listen to talk radio, so it's either music or talk radio. Okay, so I like to listen to the news, I like to listen to sports, and I always listen to the traffic because there's always a crash somewhere in Vancouver, and it's going to take me 3 times longer if I don't know what the traffic situation is. So, but once I'm done that, if I'm listening to talk radio, what happens is top of the hour, they give me the news. 2 minutes afterwards, they give me the weather. 2 minutes afterwards, they give me the traffic. 2 minutes afterwards, they give me the sports. 2 minutes afterwards, the guy who's talking on the talk show says, this is my guest. There he is, right? And I can't wait to talk to you after these commercial breaks. And when they come back in the commercial breaks, they said, wow, we're happy that you're back here. By the way, this is the latest news. This is the latest weather. This is the latest traffic, blah, 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 blah. He asks one question. The guy says, all right, I'm going to give you wait, it's a commercial break. So the result is it takes you 4 hours to get any information out of this expert. And it drives me crazy because I want to have efficient use of my time. So podcasts, no commercials. Now, there may be some that do, but if they do, you unsubscribe them, right? So it has to be a little more subtle in terms of getting your e-commerce messages out. But the fact is if you've got an area of interest that there's a lot of people around the world that want to hear what you have to say, and you can put it into a 20-minute, here is the meat of the nut, as opposed to the radio stations, which take 2 hours to get through the same amount of information. Which way are you going to choose, right? So I think we're right at the beginning of a whole revolution when it comes to podcasting.
But I do agree. But I'm still wondering how it fits in your marketing. Because how can you monetize a podcast? Okay, you do it now for 10 years, but I will just start up now with a podcast. So I'm wondering, okay, I do that now, but what will it bring to my business? In fact, that's a question.
That's a great question. And the answer is you have to start with the end in mind. What is your purpose? Okay, so this is social content creation because it's easy to share and you're it's social. Like we're talking right now. It's the same sort of thing when you're listening to a podcast. The person is actually speaking to you, even though they're speaking to a huge number of people. It's all individual because it all goes in these years usually, right? There's usually one or two people in the car. If there's two people in the car, I'm not so sure if you're going to be listening to a podcast. If there's one, you're very likely because you want to occupy yourself with something, right? So when you look at things like article marketing, why do you blog? Why do you post on your blog? Why do you do free YouTube videos? Why do you tweet stuff? We do it all for the same reason, which is we want to, well, there's a number of reasons. One is position myself as the expert. Two, create rapport and trust. What would be some of the other ones? Those are kind of the main thing. So all of a sudden it becomes, well, this is what happened to me. Okay, I've been doing it 10 years. The reason that I actually got onto Udemy and did my podcast course on Udemy is because somebody who knew I was a podcasting expert in Vancouver called me up and said, I would like you to come and talk to my marketing team about podcasting. We're thinking of doing podcasting. And I says, okay. Now, it just so happened that these people made apps, and they made the Starbucks app, and they made like a couple airline apps. I mean, they were doing high-end apps for people. And, so it's kind of like, wow, this is a multi-million-dollar app developing company, and they want to talk to little old me, right? Why was that? Well, that's because I was the obvious expert, to steal a quote from one of my friends. So if you become the obvious expert, then when people need your expertise, they go to you, not to somebody else. There's a lot of people they could have called up and said, you know what, we're going to do a teleconference and whatever, and you can talk to my group and blah, blah, blah. I wasn't the only option that they had, but I was front of mind. And so as you take your topic, whatever it is, and your knowledge gets out there, you're not going to see necessarily an immediate spike in sales, but and that's why you have to decide what you want to do with your podcast. So I have a book I want to sell. I have a course I want to sell. I have a service I want to sell. Okay, so you're going to let people know in your podcast. Now, they're not going to go right away. Why? Because I'm driving my car, or I'm sitting at the beach, or I'm walking the dog. Podcasting has an advantage over blogging and YouTube because it's a multitask thing. I can listen to a podcast and I can vacuum. I can listen to a podcast while I'm driving. I cannot watch a YouTube video while I'm driving. I can't really do a very good job of dusting or the laundry if I'm trying to watch, or write a blog post or read a blog post or any of those things, right? So this is something that you can do it while you're doing whatever else you're doing in your day. So once you've got, once you sort of understand that, and you understand that this is not an infomercial, this is not a, I'm going to get you to buy right now sort of thing. It's possible, okay? There are people who have infomercials who can do a podcast, and they will have us running, putting the car in park, pull off to the side, and get on our phone and buy. But the majority of us, that's not going to happen. So we wouldn't even try. So you can sell something on your podcast. It's just going to take a while because they're not in a buying mode. The other thing you can do is you could have sponsorships. And I'm actually just working on, I think it's going to be 2 courses on sponsorships, because I have 2 different experts that have approached me about doing a course on sponsorship. So you can go to somebody, and one of them, for example, Martin Wales, he was approached because of the relationship that he had with Microsoft. He ended up doing a radio show that he got Microsoft to sponsor. So all of a sudden, it's not, the Martin Wales small business show. It is the Microsoft Presents Martin Wales Entrepreneur Show. And all of a sudden, like, Microsoft is behind the show. There's money behind the show. There's prestige behind the show. There's credibility behind the show. So there's a lot of reasons why you should look at sponsorships. And the best one is all you got to do is, this is sponsored by. Now, Mommy Cast is a podcast that's a great example of that as well. These were 2 moms who got together. This is my story. So it could be totally wrong, but I love this story. I'm not going to change it. two moms got together. They sat in the kitchen. They have little Johnny, little Susie, toddlers running around, and they just talked about what it was like to be a mom. And Dixie Cup loved it. Don't know how they found them or whatever, but they called up these two moms and they said, we love what you're doing. We want you to continue doing it. And we want to give you a check for $100,000. Well, of course, thank you very much, Dixie Cup, for sponsoring this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm sure they did other promotional things as well. But when you're a sponsor, it's not like you're an advertiser, which is another way you could sell ads on, but I don't advise that. It's way better to have a sponsor. The sponsor is just, they're looking for impressions. They're not looking for sales, right? Then you could be a coach. And I'm just finishing up actually, I've turned into a video course maniac, but I really enjoy interacting with people, and I found experts that have knowledge that I want to share with my audience, and one of them is coaching. So if you've got a podcast and you've built up a following, then those people want to know more about how to do what it is that you're teaching. It's just natural, right? And there's going to be a small group of those people that want you one-on-one, or they want to be part of a group coaching program. So we're actually looking at how to train podcasters into becoming coaches, because it's just because I get that question all the time. How do you monetize your podcast? Well, if you're a coach, it's just great. I'm doing a relationship podcast, and if you really want to get to the, fix this relationship problem you've got, then give me a call or send me an email here, or go here to sign up, and we'll do a free Skype call. And then if you like me and I like you, we can talk about whether you want me to be your coach, sort of thing. So it's an easy transition from being a podcaster who is the expert to, hey, if you want, we can just get on one-on-one, and I'll share my knowledge, my wisdom. I'll mentor you, whatever it is. If I'm a fitness guru, I mean, it's ideal for people that are like into fitness or relationships, and those are the topics. But I mean, it could be you could have a chess podcast, and you know what? If you want, we can go and I can mentor you on chess. Doesn't matter where you are, because we've got these cameras and stuff. I can see your screen, you can see my screen, and I can tell you when you're doing something, you're doing it wrong or whatever, right?
The first time I experienced the podcast was the one from Michael Stelzner. And it was about Hangouts.
Oh yeah,
with Brandon Sweezy. So I don't know if she still does the Hangouts show, but at that time it was the first time that I experienced how you can learn from a podcast. But what are the ways, in fact, to put that into work? Do you need a recording software? Is it expensive to start a podcast?
That's a great question. And basically, if you have a computer, you have everything that you need, okay? Now, I would recommend that as you go through the process, and I firmly believe in lifelong learning and constant improvement, okay? That means that I'm not perfect today, and I wasn't yesterday, and I'm not going to be tomorrow. I'm just going to get incrementally better. So sometimes you can get overwhelmed with, well, you need to have a Z43X Acadia mic that's got compressors, and like, what? Like, this thing here is $60. Like, okay, so if you were just starting out, this is what I recommend. It's a Logitech something. Go to Best Buy or Source or whatever. Ask them, where's the Logitech headset? And it's got the little mic here. Perfect thing to start. I have like, I don't want to exaggerate, 12 different types of mics. So I've become a mic collector. It's just awful, right? But over 10 years, you can expect that to happen, particularly if you like doing it, right? Because you'll see somebody and you'll go, oh my God, like your sound is so good. That's something that happens, by the way. You listen very differently when you podcast, because everything sounds fine da-di-da-di-da when you record, and then when you edit the recording, you hear the birds, or you hear the airplane, or you hear the kids yelling in the living room, or you go, oh, because our minds filter all that stuff out. But when you're actually editing and recording and listening to yourself, by the way, the best personal development course you can ever do is podcasting. You record yourself, you listen to yourself, then you become aware. Wow, I say a lot, or I say a lot, or I say so a lot, or right a lot. There are words that we use constantly. And all of our friends are either used to it and ignore it, or they filter it out, and we aren't aware of it. So then our communication is nowhere near as good as it'll be after a year of podcasting.
To come back to the Logitech, the noise reduction is marvelous on that mic. It's you don't hear anything around.
Yeah, it's great. And I'm actually doing an experiment because I've never actually been in the balcony in my backyard with this headset, well, with anything to record. But I was thinking, I always think, like, how can we make it interesting for everyone that's watching, right? Like, I hate to tell you this, it's boring looking at a blue background, right? And, so I look at different, I mean, it's professional. There's no doubt about that. But why aren't we, like, this is the laptop lifestyle is what I want to live. So, why not live it? And I was looking around and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go out. The lighting, it's overcast, so I don't have the sharp light. It would be totally different if it was sunny because I would have shadows and everything else. But it seems to be, pretty good. So I thought, I'm just going to go outside. So you have to.
For me, it's dark outside now.
That's right. Yeah, it'd be pitch black. You'd be seeing this, right? So we don't want that. But the answer to your question is it's incredibly cheap because you already have your computer. The computer normally has a mic, so you could use that if you wanted to start, or you can spend $50, get something like this, or you can go and you can look at all the different mics. Like, go to Amazon and just do a search on mic. There's a whole pile of. In my Power Podcasting course, I actually have a lecture where I go through, I think 6 of the mics, and what I did was I recorded on all 6 mics separately, and I put it all together in the lecture, so you could actually hear the difference. This is this mic, this is that mic, and you can hear the difference in my voice.
That's good.
But I find that you can get procrastination by overwhelm when it comes to mics because, wow, like, they all sound different. Do they sound better?
So you're more the keep it super simple man.
Yeah.
If I understand.
Yeah. And as you get better, then it's like you do notice things, right? Like, you'll be on with somebody and you say, like, what mic are you using? I love the sound of your voice. This mic and it's it's $100, or this mic and it's $20. I mean, who knows why, right? Wow, okay. And you get it, and it's just like, wow, I really like the sound of that. Now, what'll happen, and it happens to everybody, there's nothing you can do about it, just get over it, is the first episode you ever do will be the worst episode you ever do. And when you go back when you go ahead a year from now and you listen to your first one or your second one or your 10th one, or you go 5 years ahead and you listen to your 100th one, it doesn't matter. You go, oh my goodness, how awful was that? There's hissing, there's this, there's that. Like, I listened to a couple of my 10-year-old podcasts, just, I don't know why, about 3 weeks ago. And I was just like, are you kidding me? I was embarrassed, right? But at the time, it was cutting edge stuff, right? So you're going to improve. You're going to get better at it. You're going to speak better. The equipment is going to improve. And it's going to happen naturally because you're just going to be going, oh, man, like, I really like that sound, or I really like this sound. And you're going to become educated, and it's a gradual process. And then you're going to look back and you're going to be saying, wow, I can't believe I was that bad. But you weren't bad. You were great. It's just that you are now greater. And that's one of the advantages of podcasting from a personal perspective.
I have a question. So it's super simple to start up. I believe you. You can go straight to iTunes, in fact, and sign up. There are some other things that you have to put in place, I guess, less straightforward then. But how now with Blab, it's super simple because they deliver you the MP3 file and the MP4 file. So how do you look at that, Scott?
I just go, oh, it is so cool. Actually, before Blab, so like 2 weeks ago, the way that I would do my podcasts was I would go and do a Google Hangout.
Yes.
And then I would take the recording of the Google Hangout, download it, I'd extract the audio, and I would fiddle around with a bit, and I would upload it to my podcast world, which is where I host. And Now that we have Blab, that is another alternative. It's not necessarily one I would do instead of, because there's reasons why I like Google Hangouts, right? I mean, so both platforms are awesome. Both platforms are great. Blab just makes it super easy. So if this was where I wanted to, where do I start now? I start with the Blab. You get a guest on, I almost said a ghost on, you get a guest on, and you talk and talk and talk, and it's really fun because it's even more like TV talk TV, right? Because usually you've got the host right here, if you're on that side, if you're not, it's that side. And then you've got a screen with your guest because they're somewhere else. So this is, mimicking what we see on TV, which is great. Then, like you say, you get the audio. So you could just take that audio straight as it is and put it up if you wanted to. I would recommend that you get Audacity, which is a free audio editing program. Or if you've got a Mac, you have GarageBand. And I would put a little bit of music at the beginning, a little bit of music at the end. You can get fancier and fancier. You can have people, outros and intros and all these sort of things.
Voiceovers
and everything. Yeah, but I like to have just a little bit of music coming in. It's the same music every time, so it anchors people. Music is very, very powerful, and I would say like 99% of podcasters miss the boat because they don't put any music at the beginning and at the end. The music at the end cues the listener that we're stopping, right? Oh, okay, it's the music, we're at the end. The music at the beginning is you're in the right place, because every time I start with 15 seconds of music, and usually there's 2 or 3 seconds where it's blank. So this is not high-tech stuff at all. And then it's me saying, hey, welcome to the show. We're going to be talking about whatever. And I go right into it. However, I do the intros normally I have 40 podcasts. I'm not doing them all right now, but I've done 40 in the past. So I have different beginnings for different podcasts. But the music is nice because, it's a comfortable feeling. They get used to everyone gets used to the music. It's why The Simpsons, for example, doesn't have different music at the beginning. It's the same music over and over and over again. You just look around like, why are the radio? I listen to talk radio. Like, why are they doing that? How do they segue from one guest to another? If they have a bad guest, how do they, or if they have a call-in show and it's a bad caller, how do they cut the guy off without acting like a jerk? How do they segue from one topic to another topic? How do they ask their questions? How do they introduce their guests? And I listen for all that stuff, and I think, I really like that idea. Oh, I don't like that idea. I really like that idea. So one trend is having 2 or 3 people on a radio show. Like, what? Why are they doing that? Well, because the more people, the more conversation, the more it draws people in. Blab is perfect for that because we can open it up and we can have 4 people chatting away, and it makes for entertaining and exciting radio. I don't actually say often that I'm a podcaster. I have an online radio show. Wow. And I'll tell you another trick. You are the executive producer of your online radio show. So I am the executive producer of Weight Loss in the Mind. I'm the executive producer of Internet Marketing Unleashed. And it's just like, and I tell people that and they just go, oh, yeah, I feel important. Yeah, names and labels are really important. So you're not just a podcaster, you're the executive producer of whatever the name of your show is.
These are great tips, Scott. Do you have some final thoughts or tips for people who are considering to start podcasting? What would you give them as recommendations or tips?
Well, there's a few podcast hosts that are exceptional, and actually, I think there's only a few. Like I've looked. Libsyn they started in 2004, 2005. They're huge. They've got billions of downloads. They're a premium service, so there could be $5, could be $20, could be $100 a month, depending. But a lot of the major podcasters are on there. Podomatic is another one that's really good. And My Podcast World is the one I built because about 5 or 6 years ago, Podomatic would be good one day and really bad the next day. And my friends got really upset with me complaining about it all the time. I don't blame them because, you know, it's like if you're mad about something, do something. Don't just complain. But I did. I just complained. And finally he said, you know, why don't you make your own? And I said, well, I don't know how to. I've never worked with a programmer, blah, blah, blah. And he said, well, I have a programmer here. Go do it. So I built it, and we've never got around to making it a premium service, which means asking for money. So it's free, mypodcastworld.com. So you can actually start out, try everything for free. And I'm maintaining it because it's my podcast platform for me. And I just happen to so it's not something that I advertise. It's not something that I try to get a ton of people in. I think I was 400 or 500.
And where can they find it, you say, Scott?
www.mypodcastworld.com.
Okay, thank you. And perhaps I see also someone asking for the course that you have made on Udemy.
Yes. So now, I sent you a link for it, did I not?
Yes, you did. You did.
Yes.
I will share it.
Now, when you get the link, the course is $147. With this link, it's a little bit of a discount. I wanted to, you know, give you everyone here's. I mean, you're listening to me, so I wanted to make it. I wanted to make it easy. You know, I want to thank you and give you a gift. So I think the price went down to $0, if I recall correctly.
Yes, I guess.
And I do recall correctly. So it's free. It's over 7 hours. Fortunately, it's set up in different sections, so you don't have to watch it all at once, and you don't have to watch all of it if you don't. But if you want to know how to set up your show, how to do the editing of the audio, these are all in different sections, so you can kind of pick and choose. Plus, I spent a fair bit of time on how to get the word out about your podcast. And so you can see there's some sections on marketing. And then there were questions that people had and bonus lectures as I answered those questions. So please, you know, feel free to participate. And on there's in the course also is a link to My Podcast World, so you know how to use it. There's also just added a section on Libsyn because I was talking to the vice president of podcast relations at Libsyn, and he you know, and I thought, you know, really need to be comprehensive and show you how to use Libsyn because it's a great service. If I'd have known about it, it was there, but I didn't know about it. If I'd have known about it, I would have just switched to them and saved myself all the headaches that come with doing any sort of programming like for podcasting.
Okay, I will share the link up here in the chat. And so everyone who is interested in following the course, the Power Podcasters course, I see normally it was it's a time limited offering. Yeah? It's $19. So I would say it's really an opportunity. I would like to thank you, Scott, for joining me during this live recording. And well, we'll see you next, of course, with regarding to podcasting.
Thanks. Thank you very much for having me.